I'm the dude. So that's what you call me.
Are you a virgin?
Yeah, not since I was 10.
Are you there, God? It's me, Margaret.
Come on to the coast. We get together, have a few laughs.
Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
Can I return it if it doesn't fit?
It always fits. Eventually.
Welcome back, Movie Minglers. I'm Caveman.
And I'm Maggie.
And we're on our 16th episode this week. And we are doing Ratatouille.
Ratatouille!
Our first Pixar film on the list. And our fourth animated film.
Is this also our first Disney film?
No, wait.
I
was about to say Marvel, but that's Sony.
Yeah.
Yeah, first Disney film.
Excellent.
Highest rated Disney film by users on Letterboxd.
Which makes sense, because this movie is fucking great.
It is. It's fantastic.
This movie is so good.
It's also very high for Pixar. Like, this is Pixar's, not only Disney's first, but this is a Pixar first.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many great Pixar movies.
There are so many great Pixar movies, and we're going to be able to get to quite a few of mine on here. I mean, my love for WALL-E is unending and pure and forever.
I love Ratatouille.
Yeah.
But I feel like I've got maybe 3-4 other Pixar films I would have put above this one.
I think before having rewatched it this morning, I too probably would have put it higher. But honestly, after rewatching it, I just was reminded how good this film was. Our firstborn went through a phase of, like, they loved movies as a kid, which is funny because they don't really like watching movies now. But when they were like a toddler, you know, that 1.5 to like 3.5, well, even like 5.5 range, it was just all movies all day, all the time. And so there was Cinderella and Alice in Wonderland, Peter Pan for a hot minute, 101 Dalmatians, The Muppets, a lot of like classic Disney films. But Ratatouille was one of them, where they went through a phase where they watched this movie like twice a day, every day for a month.
I think because of that, we haven't watched it
Yeah,
in a
because
while.
of that, we haven't watched it in a while. Because I remember I was never sad to have it on in the background. There were worse movies. Like, I would much rather put on Ratatouille than The Lion King.
Like, you don't have to watch, you know, you could do dishes
Yeah.
while the kid's watching this movie, and you just hear Michael Giacchino's score behind you. It's so good. Well, let's get into it.
Let's get into it. Yeah, we have lots of thoughts about this one.
Ratatouille was written and directed by Brad Bird in 2007. And one thing, I usually leave it towards the end of my spiel about the movie itself, and how much money it made is usually what I leave for the end. But the fact that it's 2007, this is before a lot of streaming services. This is before Blu-ray came to being.
Yeah, I mean, Netflix was still a mail to your house sort of thing.
Right, and but this movie made, in theaters, $626 million worldwide.
Ew.
And another $217 million in DVD sales.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because you
That's
couldn't...
the only way you could see it.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
unless
we
you
owned
had
it.
cable.
Yeah.
You either had it on VHS or DVD.
God,
there was no other choice.
It's funny, thinking about how I brought up our kids, like, want to watch movies all the time. They weren't streaming. Those were DVDs we had to have and, like, constantly be putting in for them. Or occasionally, like, you know, maybe we DVR'd, like, Cinderella off the Disney Channel, but...
And when Pixar...
Oh, that's crazy. I didn't even think about the fact that we would have been just putting a DVD in.
Well, and then this is 2007, and we don't have kids at this time.
Oh, no, we don't. You and I...
We just got married.
Yes. Actually, yes.
This is probably our first Pixar film we saw in theaters as a married couple.
Possibly.
It's possible.
Yeah. My God, that's crazy to think that, like, there was a time, and how easily I forgot it. There was a time that when you wanted to watch movies, you physically had to put a disc in a machine. Oh, my God.
Physical media. Yeah.
Physical media.
So this is Pixar's 8th movie.
Mm-hmm.
And when I first started really getting into Pixar, we didn't have kids. I just wanted to go see a Pixar film because they were always so much geared towards children, but so much geared towards adults as well.
Well, and also, like, it's not like you were 50 when this movie came out. You were a man in your
an
young
adult.
20s. You're still a man in your young 20s, and cartoons are for everyone. I mean, we were definitely like
Not when I was young. Not when I was in my 20s.
I feel like us as much elder millennials, or at least I feel like growing up, my dad would watch cartoons with us. I mean, my dad would also only really watch Looney Tunes and cartoons from his youth, but he would still have a penchant to for modern cartoons. He loved Beavis and Butthead. He loved Two Stupid Dogs.
Isn't that cute? But it's wrong!
I guess I was raised in a house with more faithful animation viewing and less guilt about animation viewing than you did. I don't know. Because, I always grew up just being like, oh, fuck, that movie's animated? I don't care. I'm going to go see it anyways.
The Pixar films were just a class of their own. They were always so well written, so well produced, well animated. They were the leading animation studio that was doing CG animation. No other companies were really doing that. Eventually, you got DreamWorks and Apple that started, or Sony that were starting to branch into that as well.
But nobody did for a long time. Nobody did it as well as Pixar did.
Every Oscar season that came around, it was Pixar wins for this film. Pixar wins for that film.
Not necessarily, though. I mean, the first movie to win an animated film was Shrek.
Well, I'm talking about once Pixar started really
pushing,
up.
Or that CG really started pushing up.
Like Toy Story 2, I believe, won. Monsters Inc. right after. Finding Nemo right after. The Incredibles right after. They just constantly had hit after hit after hit.
Yeah, well, they were. It's it was the best studio with the most money, who could pour money into their resources, their animators, their production teams, their and their acting, their actors. They had the money to pour into,
and they could afford to.
They could afford quality.
A lot of animators to do a lot of work in a really
short amount of
time, but working around the clock a lot of CGI animators for superhero movies and other live action films are working around the clock.
Which good for them for finally trying to unionize.
Finally unionizing, and now hopefully they can keep continuing to work towards getting better deals than some of the shit they get.
Yeah, and actually making better quality, movies. But that's a rant for another day.
There's real quick. There's just 3 guys that I want to shout out from. Okay. They are the Chexicans, also known as Heroes Reforged on YouTube. Hector Navarro, Adam Lavick, and Agustin Rios are 3 gentlemen who used to work in the industry, animating, doing CGI on these films. A lot of it was 3D transfers, being able, they all worked on Marvel movies and other big budget films, doing 3D rendering and 3D animation. Yeah, and they have stories and the workload that they had and how a lot of them, their bosses treat them and all that stuff. Not to say that this happens everywhere, and I know that there are some animation houses out there that treat their workers really well, and I just wish the best for all of them. But at the same time, I just want to shout those 3 guys out. They are really cool, and if you ever want to check them out on YouTube, they're highly entertaining and sweet men.
I love all 3 of those men, but my love for Hector Navarro knows no ends, thanks to a little show called Mothership.
Well, Mothership.
Which was a perfect thing that I think only the 2 of us watched.
And that's probably why they didn't last long.
That's why it didn't last. But Jessica Chobot and fucking Hector Navarro on Mothership, forever in my heart.
Brad Bird wrote and directed this. Brad Bird is one of those guys who's been in the industry forever. He was there at the beginning of The Simpsons in 1989. He was with them for 10 years as an executive, as a kind of a go-to guy when for advice about animation, and he did a lot of work there. He even directed some episodes of The Simpsons back in the day. He also wrote one of the best animated movies ever to exist on the planet, and it's not on this list at all, which is so upsetting, which is The Iron Giant.
Which I've only seen half of.
Fuck you.
We can make it a bonus episode.
Fantastic film. It's essentially, if he also did The Incredibles, which everybody
it's a great
points
film.
to as being a Fantastic Four film.
Yeah.
The Iron Giant is pointed to as the best Superman film ever to be made. And yeah, absolutely great. I can't believe it's not on this list. But he also, in my opinion, he turned the Mission Impossible franchise around. It kind of seemed to be going in the gutter.
He did the third one?
I think he did the fourth one. The third one was called Mission Impossible 3, and it was fine. It was better than 2, but it was fine. I think he did 4.
He did Ghost Protocol?
Protocol, which I think was 4. I think that was the sand when they go to Saudi Arabia.
2011.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. It was his live-action directorial debut.
It was, and like I said, I think after he did Ghost Protocol,
Yeah.
To me, that's when the whole franchise started.
Became a Fast and Furious film.
Well, yeah, but see that, but then
It became a modern action film.
Yeah, and-
like So I haven't seen all of the Mission Impossible movies, but I've seen enough of all of them to know what they are and what they are about.
They're fun action films where you get
The
to watch
first
Tom Cruise
3
do crazy shit.
Were like 90s action films.
One was a very like 90s
Yeah.
espionage action film. 2 was a John Woo,
It was
crazy John Woo film.
It was a previous action era. It was they kind of fit into the years that they were made.
Yeah.
But shit's getting amped up in Hollywood, and if Brad Bird hadn't come along with Ghost Protocol and kind of like, turned the dial up to 11 the way that all the other action movies were doing,
Sure. No, I
those
get
movies
that.
would have gotten just swept away.
Yeah, I think he
So-
contributed a lot to it. Him and Tom Cruise, all the work Tom Cruise has actually done for that franchise to make it more fun of seeing this actor doing crazy stunt work. But then Brad Bird, I think, just the movie that he made was really good.
It would be safe to say that Brad Bird he's basically a modern day Walt Disney, and would have probably created his own thing had Disney, the company, not gone in and roped him in and swept him up and said, "You're one of us now."
You're one of us
which
now.
is not a bad thing. But,
If
you know,
Pixar
if
had
you...
the money back then,
Yeah.
it would have been neat to see what they would have done away from Disney.
Yeah.
Not
But-
that I know Disney gives them a lot of freedom.
My point is, though, with the genius, the storytelling, the innovation, the trust in his team, like, he kind of walked the same path as Walt Disney, but instead of going off and, making Birdland or whatever, he got taken in by Disney, the company, and they were like, we'll give you all the money and resources you need to keep being a genius. They recognized one of their own, and they kind of swept him in and said, you're, one of us now. One of us. One of us.
And then we have the talented, always amazing, always original Michael Giacchino with the soundtrack.
Absolute
Great score.
perfection.
Great
His
score.
first Oscar nomination. Not his first win, but his first Oscar nomination.
Speaking of Oscars, this movie was nominated for 5 of them. Original screenplay, original score, sound mixing and editing, and then animated feature, which is the one that it got.
They had the option, Disney had the option to push this movie for Best Picture that year in the Oscars. But they worried that if they did that, they would take away from its, giant possibility of winning Best Animated. They knew for sure that it was probably going to win the Best Animated Film Oscar. But it would have been a gamble if they had pushed it for the Best Picture Oscar, and they didn't want to take away from the animated. So they just pushed animation over, overall Best Picture, which is a good choice. It's like this is the race this horse is absolutely going to win versus this is the race it might win. Let's bet on the race it will win,
Right.
Yeah.
When I was looking up to see what other movies Ratatouille was up against for Best Animated Film, first of all, I was surprised it was only up against 2 other movies. They didn't have 5 nominated animated films that year. And I
Okay.
don't know if that was a thing for
Maybe
a while.
it was either
and
a
then
thin year in animation or there just weren't enough good movies in animation.
maybe I can't remember when certain movies started getting 5 nominations and
Yeah.
what year. The only reason I remember what year, I remember it's the first year that the Oscars allowed 10 films
For the best picture.
for the best picture, regular live action picture, was the same year that True Grit and Black Swan and Toy Story 3 were all nominated for best picture. That's just because I watched all 10 of those movies in the theater back to back to back to back to back. It was up against Persepolis and Surf's Up.
I remember Persepolis. I've never seen it, but I remember the I know that people love that film. Is Surf's Up the penguin surfing movie?
I didn't look into it.
Hold on.
I was just like,
I'm pretty sure that's like penguins go surfing.
Wait, the
which-
penguins that are based off of the Madagascar movies?
No, it's as soon as I show you this picture, you're gonna recognize it. It's like
Oh, jeez.
like South American or like fucking Australian penguins discovering surfing or something.
Wow.
Like this is an early who did this film?
You can already see, like, Ratatouille is so much more. This is what I mean by adult. Like, you have a movie like Surf's Up, which is definitely catering completely towards children. And
It was from Columbia Pictures and Sony Pictures Animation. And the cast has Shia LaBeouf, Jeff Bridges, John Hader,
oh, wow.
and Zooey Deschanel.
I'm already tuning out.
Well, but like so, they've got Surf's Up has the cast, right? It's a cast of recognizable actors
yeah.
doing a thing. Whereas Ratatouille, I mean, the most recognizable actor is who? Fucking Brad Garrett
At the time,
at the
it was
time.
probably
I mean, Ian Holmes.
Ian
in
Holmes
it.
is a
Peter
is a
O'Toole.
yeah, those but they have small parts.
Yeah.
And Ian Holm has a bigger part, but
I mean,
he's
people knew.
not
Okay, so
that
Patton
recognizable.
Oswalt knew who people were. Or Patton Oswalt.
Lord of the
knew
Rings
who-
had been out since
Yeah.
before Ratatouille.
People knew who Patton Oswalt was, but he was a little more niche as
He
a
was
comedian
niche back then, yeah.
than like Shia LaBeouf.
Right.
Like The Beef in 2007, The Beef.
I understand why they
name.
chose. I know, and they try to sell with a kids movie. When
Yeah,
it's
they're selling
so
the
catered
cast.
towards kids. They're hoping the cast is what brings adults to
Yeah.
it too. With Ratatouille, they are going to make it a fun story about a rat making food so
Yeah.
that kids have fun watching it, but then
Adults,
give it a great
yeah,
story
feel something too.
and great characters to latch
Well,
onto.
that goes to show what God. The conversation's off the rails. It's delightful.
No, we're talking. That's what it's supposed to do.
It's what we do. It goes to show what was important to Sony Animation in 2007 versus what was important to Pixar in 2007. Because this movie also is the first movie to come out after Disney bought Pixar. This is the first official Disney Pixar film, as opposed to just Disney releasing Pixar movies for them, being their distribution. This is their first one that they produced. So, and it goes to show that, like, Pixar had the brains to put the love and the attention into the story, into the world building, into the music, into everything, right? And they produced, honestly, one of the best animated films ever made. I mean, it is on the top 10 lists of a lot of fucking best animation films ever. Even Disney animators were like, this is the best movie to come out since Snow White. Like, they put in the time and the effort and the love, whereas Sony was just throwing shit at a wall and hoping something stuck, which is what they've done
Well, and
for so long.
Yeah.
God, they're
Look at their
still
live action
doing it.
Spider-Verse.
Oh my god, but for Sony it was like, well, we need to get asses into the seats, so we're going to put Jeff Bridges in this movie and The Beef and Zooey Deschanel. And Pixar was like, we're going to get asses into the seats by just making the best movie we can.
I think that shows you too what studios. You really see a pattern of what studios believe is what people want, and tradition is what people want.
Yeah.
And then you look at the people who are actually making differences and money
Yeah.
with big hits is because they're taking chances and they're not doing the same cookie cutter. Like Surf's Up is definitely a cookie cutter
absolutely.
industry animated film that's just
I could probably
throwing
just
shit together.
come up with a plot for Surf's Up. Having never seen it and not knowing what the plot is, I could come up with what the plot is, probably very close to what it actually is. But it's sort of the same with what Mattel is doing right now.
Oh my God.
Right? Like, Mattel made billions off of Barbie. And Barbie is a beautiful story about feminism and what it means to be human and what it means to be a woman, and telling a female story with female voices that connected to the entire world. And all Mattel sees is dollar signs, and now they're like, we're going to make a fucking race car movie, and we're going to make a fucking, whatever else Mattel is there. Like we're going to make a G.I. Joe movie that doesn't suck. We're going to do all this. But it's like, guys, all they're seeing is the dollar signs. They're not seeing why the movie.
They're like, look at all the other properties we have. Let's make movies out of these. But those movies are just going to have your basic battleship kind of storylines.
Versus what Barbie was.
Versus what actually Barbie, the story and the reason that every time that during that summer you come out of the theater and there were lines of women and men in pink
waiting
going
to see
around
this
the
movie.
corner, and how obvious that is, but studios just don't understand.
Yeah,
that.
they're not seeing why those people are there. They're just seeing that they're there.
Like you said, at the time, not like the biggest known names, but we had Patton Oswalt, Ian Holm, Lou Romano, Brian Dennehy, Peter O'Toole, Brad Garrett, Janine Garofalo, Will Arnett, and John Ratzenberger, of course, because it's Pixar.
I have so many thoughts on this cast that I cannot wait to get into.
Well, let's get into it then, because that's a good place to start.
First of all, Brad Garrett is the fucking GOAT. Yes, I would like to think that more people know Brad Garrett for his animated voices, because he's done so many voices for Disney films over the years and just other animated films, that I'd like to think people know him more for that than, like, Everybody Loves Raymond. But in actuality, it's probably that most people know him for Everybody Loves Raymond. But he's so fucking good in everything he does. I don't know if anybody out there is watching Not Dead Yet. It's this little sitcom on ABC, and it's darling. He is phenomenal on it. He plays this, like, billionaire newspaper owner with no heart, but a lot of love. I don't know. It's hard to explain. But he's a delight in it. But every time I hear a Brad Garrett voice in animation, in any sort of animated film, I'm so happy. I love him in Tangled. I love him in Ratatouille. Like, he's one of those people that I feel like Disney has just been like, hey, we need a voice actor. Let's get Brad Garrett to come in and do something. He always knocks it out of the park. I'm never unhappy to hear him in any film. And it's just, I'm glad for him. Like, good for him for getting in on, like, getting into the Disney pocket and just fucking putting out bangers nonstop and reaping the rewards. I'm so happy for him for that. Yeah, he deserves it.
He does a great job as Gusta.
Oh, he does a great job as Gusto. Patton Oswalt, this is his first animated film, I think, that he did. It's first or second. Trust me on that. Like, we don't need to fact check. He's delightful as the voice of Remy. I knew that I knew the voice of Skinner, the little sous chef. I knew that it was somebody I was supposed to know who it was. And it wasn't until afterwards that I was like, oh yeah, it's fucking Sir Ian Holm. Like, Ian Holm was incredible. Brian Dennehy. I'm Brian Dennehy. He was great. Him and Peter Schoen, who's actually one of the animators. Peter Schoen, who played Emil, the older brother, Remy's older brother. Those two were just, like, they're kind of the heart and soul of this film. Like, they're so good. I love Peter O'Toole. I've always loved him. I will always love him.
Perfect voice.
Like, who else could have been that
Especially
character?
when you need somebody, like, kind of high and mighty.
Yeah,
better
like hoity-toity. British. Like, who else are you going to get but Peter fucking O'Toole? And then Janine Garofalo, who, again, like, I was sitting there and I was listening to Colette, and I'm like, I know that this is somebody. Like, the Rolodex in my head had to flip around a few times before I was like, oh yeah, it's fucking Janine Garofalo.
I would have never guessed Janine Garofalo from that She did a good job.
She does a great job. I also love that Will Arnett is not playing Will Arnett.
Right.
Because that's what all of his roles have become, but especially his voice roles. Like, he stopped trying to do accents or doing different voices, and now it's just, well, that's Will Arnett as Batman. That's Will Arnett as,
It's the same voice every time.
as BoJack Horseman.
But this is not that voice.
No, it's not.
Right.
And he's great in it. And then John Ratzenberger, of course, is always a delight. I do have a list of other actors that were considered for Remy, and we can either get into that now or later. I'll leave that up to you.
Let's do it. I want to know who else was
this list
prospected.
According to the trivia section on IMDb, our unofficial sponsor. IMDb. These are the other people that were considered for Remy. Remy the Rat is voiced by Patton Oswalt, a voice that we know and love. Brendan Fraser.
Okay.
Okay, sure. Jeremy Irons. Yes, but can you imagine Jeremy Irons as Remy?
No, maybe Remy's dad.
Yeah. Alec Baldwin.
No, thank you.
Jason Lee.
Huh. Maybe Remy's brother.
Yeah, I can see it. It's Jason Lee. Bruce McGill, who I'm not 100% sure who that is.
Sounds so familiar.
And I didn't. You look him up while I tell you the rest.
Okay.
Luke Wilson.
Okay.
Could kind of see it.
Sure.
Orlando Bloom.
No.
Steve Carell.
I could see him doing it well.
Ed Harris.
Once again, why? A much older Remy. Even in 2007, he was old.
And the last one, which is somehow the most bonkers, but the one that I want the most, I want to hear the alternative takes, is Sam Elliott.
The dude abides. I don't know about you, but I take comfort in that.
Could you imagine?
Could you imagine Sam Elliott doing Peter O'Toole's role, especially at the end with the dialogue? Because he always does like exposition dialogue.
He does do the great like voiceover dialogue. I could believe.
So this is Bruce McGill.
Yeah. Oh,
character
yeah.
actor. He's been in 1,000 things.
Isn't he a major voice in SpongeBob?
That is not shown on.
Oh
IMDb.
no! I'm thinking of Clancy. Thomas Clancy.
Tom Clancy.
No,
that's
Clancy
a writer.
Brown.
Clancy Brown. Yes.
So like honestly, so
the
in this
biggest
list,
thing I think I would say the biggest thing that Bruce McGill was ever in was Animal House.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he played.
The crazy guy that like threw all the bombs in. Right, he was. Animal House is not a movie that aged well in any capacity, but fuck, is it a longtime favorite?
Daniel Simpson Day, but I think
I know.
If you watched it,
characters.
if we all watched Animal House again,
but going back to it, so like Brendan Fraser has a great voice that I can imagine, especially in 2007. He had a great, light, lilting voice that would have been a fantastic Remy. Jason Lee would have been a fun take on Remy because he would have had the sarcasm. He would have had the like, whoa, mans.
I definitely think it worked to have a comedian / just somebody who has a
going
comedic.
Through this list, right?
I know. I'm just saying that I think they did right by having a
funnier
somebody
voice.
who knows. I think a lot of voice actors. I think it helps that when voice actors have a more comedic tone, it helps in their delivery.
Yeah, especially for like the main character.
They know timing. They know.
And also, let's be 100% honest here. Remy is an asshole.
Remy is
Remy is a huge asshole. What a dick.
Pretty much everybody in this movie is an asshole.
Everybody in this movie is just a hardcore asshole.
Like, I can't think of one person who they're fine. Maybe the
Colette.
Colette is the only woman in a kitchen full of men.
Yeah, so she has to be an asshole.
So she has to be an asshole to be able to.
The waiter.
The waiter is not an asshole.
He's just a coward. He's not an asshole.
If I had
his
to
job
serve those
in
kind
France,
of people.
yeah. But anyways, going back to my list really quick. Brendan Fraser, Jason Lee, Luke Wilson, Steve Carell. Those four people I could see
Steve
potentially
Carell for sure.
being the voice of Remy the Rat. Of course, now, almost 20 years after this movie, 26 years after this movie came out, I cannot fathom.
Oh, absolutely not. And this is still
16 years after this movie came out. I'm not good at math.
This is still Patton Oswalt's most recognizable role.
Yeah. And he's
still recognized on the street today. I used to follow one of his podcasts until he had to no longer do that one. But he would always talk about how the majority of people who come up to him is because he's Remy the Rat.
I mean, he voices Remy on the Disney Dreamlight Valley game, which I'm obsessed with.
He has such a specific voice that when you hear it, you instantly know Patton Oswalt, and I love that man.
Also, listeners, if you too play Disney Dreamlight Valley, feel free to email me at movieminglepod@gmail.com, and we can connect via game and play it together, because I love that game. It's amazing.
Anyway. So Remy the Rat has a very distinctive nose that first could detect the presence of rat poison so that he could save his family from being killed. And then this develops into, I don't really care for all this shitty garbage food. I want, he became a snob. He's a foodie now, and he's like, I can only have the best, and you really gotta, this is something that I think anybody who likes to cook really likes finding out, and especially when you start discovering how two different flavors go together and create another flavor. It's really exciting if you enjoy cooking, which Maggie and I really do.
We do enjoy cooking. We enjoy eating.
We really, of course we love eating. But cooking the food sometimes can be really a great stress reliever. Sometimes cooking can add more stress depending on how much time you have left and how all the craziness happening. But sometimes there have been moments after a long day at work, or maybe my birthday's coming up, and I'm like, you know what? I am going to create a dish just for myself that I know I love, or maybe I'll share it too if it's something that I know the rest of the family likes. But there's a certain things that you can't wait to have again, but it's not something I can just go to the restaurant for. This is something that I can only make at home, and I love being able to do that.
What's your favorite meal to cook?
For myself, my favorite meal that I always am so happy I do, even though it takes me forever to make, because I make everything from scratch. But it's this really great salmon dish I make with potatoes.
What's your
and
favorite?
A sauce. It's potatoes with a sauce that goes over the fish and it's absolutely just mouth. While I'm cooking it, I just can't wait to eat it all, and I do every time.
So, salmon, potatoes, and like a butter sauce for you is what you like to make yourself.
It's essentially what it is.
What do you like to make me?
I think my favorite thing to make you are breakfast meals.
I love breakfast so much. Caveman makes the best biscuits and gravy. And I know that might be sacrilege to some of you, because you'll be like, my mom or my grandma makes the best biscuits and gravy. But my mom and grandma did not make me biscuits and gravy. But Caveman does. And they are everything. I'm always so happy when he makes this meal. Everything is from scratch. Everything is perfect. Yeah,
even the biscuits.
It's so good. It's one of my favorite things.
Yeah, biscuits, gravy, roasted potatoes with... I don't do it all the time, but sometimes like this lemon curd fruit salad is really good.
With mint. It's great.
With mint, yep.
Yeah. I love cooking too, and I think that my favorite meal to make every year is Thanksgiving dinner. You
make the best Thanksgiving dinner. I love making
Thanksgiving dinner.
It.
And my mother-in-law loves it too. In fact, the first year that I was married, which happened to be the second Thanksgiving that I ever spent with Caveman, I said to my mother-in-law, I would like to cook the turkey. And my mother-in-law went, fucking great. I mean, she didn't say that, but she was like, amazing, great. You take over on all of this. Poof, I'm out. Because here's a woman who's been making Thanksgiving dinner for countless years for her entire family. And then here comes the new wife strolling in being like, I want to do it. And my wonderful mother-in-law was like, fantastic, I'll help however you want, but it's on you, bank. I knocked it out of the park then, and I've knocked it out of the park every year since. I make a great Thanksgiving dinner. I'm proud of what a great Thanksgiving dinner I make. The turkey's always perfect. The gravy is So good.
Wonderful. The stuffing is amazing.
I do usually have Caveman make the mashed potatoes because he is the
my
superior
job is
potato
mashed
masher.
potatoes and apple pie.
Yes. Oh, an apple pie. He makes the best apple pie. So we eat well here in our little
We
household.
enjoy food. We not just because we like the taste of it, but we enjoy
making
it.
food. Yeah.
And we've got our frozen stuff that we could just throw on a pan.
Absolutely. We've got our lazy day meals.
We got our lazy day meals. But
I'm currently looking at the menu of a Chinese restaurant I'm going to after I record this podcast. Like, we love food.
And we also like watching people make food.
Oh man!
Like just watching this movie brought me back to like watching Top Chef.
There was an era there where like most of our entertainment was food centric. It was the
Iron
Food
Chef.
Network, Iron Chef, Top Chef, fucking just whatever you called it. A little bit of
Any kind of competition show where the camera where you get to watch
MasterChef
was
a great one. We loved the F Word from Gordon Ramsay. Not a big fan of Hell's Kitchen.
No,
because
that's not what I want to watch.
I don't like screamy Gordon Ramsay. I like giant cupcake Gordon Ramsay, and that was him in the F Word. So we watched that a ton growing, in our early marriage. We loved watching people make food. And so this movie was...
As much as I love making food, I would not ever make it in a kitchen.
No.
That kind of stress where you have to go, but at the same time, everything's got to be perfect.
And identical.
And you're on a schedule while that's cooking. You're over here, you're multitasking like crazy.
Which I can do.
In a high stress environment. I can multitask too.
Well,
but it's a whole nother beast when
it's
in
different when you
industry.
have to get everything out at the same time at the same temperature. But I not only have I worked as a server in a fine dining restaurant, which was terrible, by the way. Great money, but God, did it disrupt my soul. But so having seen how professional fine dining kitchens run firsthand, and then, then later on in my various different careers as a pawn for capitalism, I've also worked in like smaller kitchens, like for a deli, for instance. I have worked in a deli kitchen where things were different. You made soup, you made pasta dishes, you made meatloaf. It was all a lot easier. But my whole point of this is saying is there's like, I could never work. As much as I love cooking, I could never work in a professional, like fine dining kitchen.
And I'm not just saying fine dining. For me personally,
you could even do like a Denny's hot cook.
It just
it
seems
would be terrible. It would be terrible.
High stress for me. I
fucking
like
pancakes.
I like
all
going
day?
at my own pace. I don't need somebody barking down my neck saying faster or get a perfect bet, or you're not cooking it right, or I don't need that. I like cooking in my home with my ear pods in, just listening to my podcast or music.
Yeah, drinking a beer.
Drinking a beer,
making
relaxing.
A meatloaf.
Yeah, making a meatloaf or whatever I'm doing.
Or
baking.
He's a great baker too. God, he makes the best pastries and cakes. Well, I firmly believe that every human being should work in a restaurant just to teach them what it's like to work in a restaurant and thus be nicer to those of us who have and continue to work in restaurants. So while I firmly believe that every single person should have a customer service job, especially in food handling, I don't believe that cooking in that situation is the best for everyone, because it takes a certain person, and they're usually an alcoholic criminal, to work in that high stress environment and who are taking 15 smoke breaks an hour but still slamming out steaks left, right, and center. Like, if your fucking salad guy is not a criminal, then what are you doing? Because then you're not getting good salads out of him. I'm just speaking from pure experience of my time in kitchens. Like, cooks in professional kitchens are a different sort. And that is, it's touched upon in this movie, because like when Colette goes through the backstories of all the other chefs working in Gusteau's, they
all
sous
have
chef,
kind of a dark back.
Yeah.
Not just the sous chef, but
no, the sous chef's a criminal. Nobody knows why he went to jail, but he went to jail. Fucking the saucier came off of the circus line that he'd run away to, but he got kicked out of making circuses. One guy worked for the revolutionaries, but lost, but they don't know which revolution.
We don't know which side.
The other guy is a professional gambler who's been kicked out of Monte Carlo and Vegas. Like, I'm not saying that every person that works in a kitchen is a criminal, but I am saying that, like, it takes a certain point or a certain kind of person to handle that stress and do it again and again every night and not crumble.
It's people who have had even higher stress than
Yeah.
that, and so it doesn't
So cooking
faze
for them is nothing.
Right.
If I don't know if all of you lovely people out there know what Bistro Huddy is. There's a gentleman on Instagram and TikTok named Drew Talbert, I believe, and him and his wife make this series, this silly, like TikTok series called Bistro Huddy, which takes place in this bistro. And the guy, Drew, plays all the different characters, all the chefs, all the kitchen staff, all the wait staff, the managers, all the customers, everything. They're amazing. They're so funny. And they're very, very spot on to what life is like in a restaurant. But, like, even those cooks have either weird, like, mysterious, slightly criminal backgrounds, or, they're the idiot that is the nephew of the owner, and that's why he's got a job there. It's you see all of that when you work in a kitchen, and it's very funny. So if you like Ratatouille at all and want a more adult skew on it, I would definitely recommend Bistro Huddy.
So Remy is a rat.
I almost spit beer all over the computer.
Please don't. We haven't gotten far, but that's okay.
I'm not even that high.
Because everybody, that's the thing with Ratatouille. We've either all seen it a thousand times,
all seen it 1,000
or
times.
we know the beats. Like,
Yeah.
he's a rat, great smell, loves great food, gets he wants to get recipes, or he's looking for saffron in an old lady's kitchen. She wakes up, she goes absolute Rambo on her own house. Over the top.
Overboard.
Way over the top for a rat.
Like,
for
that bitch
one rat.
destroys her house for 2 rats.
In the beginning, there was only 2 rats.
Yeah.
Eventually, she finds she's got like
what they
1,000
want.
living in her ceiling, which I too would just lose my shit.
I would
if
also
that
burn my
happened.
house to the ground.
If my ceiling caved in right now, and 1,000 rats scattered,
I'm out.
I'm out.
Yep.
Everything I own is just gone.
You
Might
can
as well-
only
building
destroy
might
it
as
with
well
fire.
burn down.
Yep.
That's it. So
I wouldn't even go back in for the important things. I'd be like, well, the kids are lost now.
So she started running out of shotgun shells, and that's when she breaks out the poison, like ready to just. She's got her
poison.
she's got her
World
gas
War I
mask on and
mask
everything,
oh,
and she's just
God.
ready to gas all the rats. Like, this woman grew up in France rough, and she was prepared for another revolution.
I gotta stop drinking beer. You keep making me want to spit it.
Remy, through all this, Remy's separated from his family and just so happens to end up in the
Paris.
sewers of Paris.
Caveman, would you ever want to go to Paris? Yeah, right? Because, like...
I want to, because I do find it
Beautiful and romantic.
From a certain point of view. Like, the pictures you see are
Mm-hmm.
always beautiful. When Remy first sees Paris for the first
Oh
time,
my gosh,
they made that
the
skyline
music,
so
everything.
beautiful. Of course,
it's
the
just,
Eiffel Tower looks great at
oh,
night.
it's stunning.
And the Louvre is full of wonderful art. And some people like French food, some people hate it. And some people like French wine, and some people are indifferent. The thing is, I don't know if I would spend so much money just to go on a vacation to Paris.
Yeah, I'm with you on
Because I think it's because I've got so many other cities around the world that I want to see first. All over, like, there's so many places in Europe and Australia and Asia and
South America. I want to see Machu Picchu so fucking bad.
South America.
I want to see Machu Picchu more than I ever want to see Paris. And yeah, Paris is beautiful, and yeah, Paris is lovely, but like everybody, and we're Americans, so we've got a certain stigma about us when we travel. But then also, you travel to place, or your friends travel to places, and they always bring back the same, which is the people in Paris suck, and they're mean to you, and they're super rude, and it's not worth it. I've heard from so many people that are like, yes, it's stunningly beautiful, but it's not necessarily worth it. So I have been skewed in my...
It's not the same romanticized Paris that
I would
used
rather
to
go
be.
to like Provence or like the French part of Switzerland, or the French border between Switzerland and Germany. Like, I want to go see the countryside of France.
I want to go to Berlin. I want to go to Frankfurt.
I want to go to French Disney. I want to go to Disney France.
I want to see Tokyo again. I want to see...
Yeah, but I'm like...
Sydney. And
I want to see more...
Hobbiton and... Like, yeah, there's a long-ass list. But
there's a long-ass list of places we'll probably
Paris
never get to.
Paris is kind of at the bottom.
Yeah, it's not... I would rather go to, like, the French countryside than I would go to Paris.
Sure.
I'd rather go see other parts of France. But, like, I've just heard enough bad things about Paris from people who I know who travel a ton. And I'm not saying it's a bad city. I'm not saying it's an ugly city or, anything. I'm just relaying what I've heard, which is they're not the nicest, and it's not necessarily that worth it. I'd rather go to Dublin.
Dublin.
I'd rather go to
Glasgow.
Venice. But it makes sense to to place this movie in Paris because France has such a reputation for food and wine. And there is not a meal that they make in this movie that I wouldn't eat. I'm not a huge fan of zucchini, so, like, ratatouille isn't at the top of my dishes of foods I would actually eat. But fuck yeah, I'd eat that version. The weird, like, lamb shortbread, the lamb stomach with octopus that they make that Remy improves upon, that everybody starts ordering a ton of. It's like, they're like, oh yeah, it's like lamb sweetbreads with a licorice sauce and octopus on the side. And you're like, well, that kind of sounds good, I guess, until you realize that sweetbreads are, like, the stomach and the organs.
I'm always down to trying something.
Yeah, but, like, it looked good. I'd try it.
Yeah, I'd
give it a shot.
For sure. I have to mention because we finally got to it, the scene with Remy finally learning that he could control Linguini with his hair underneath the hat.
Oh, it's such a cute scene.
And then, of course, watching that reminded me of Ratatouille in Everything Everywhere All at Once. So as soon as he started pulling his hair, I was just like, Ratatouille!
Which is funny because Ratatouille is a parody of Ratatouille, but,
right, but
we saw that first, and it's somehow, well, not more beloved, but still just delightful. Linguini he is a special soft boy. He, too, is kind of an asshole.
He is. Like, at the beginning, when he's a trash boy, he's very innocent, and he doesn't know what he's doing, and he just wants to be liked by everyone. And he knows that he's not a good cook, so he really doesn't know what he's there for.
He's not good at much.
His mom is getting him a job there because she knew Gusteau.
It was her dying wish for him to get a job there. So Linguini is a special soft boy, and his relationship with Remy is very cute. Because not only does he catch Remy trying to improve the soup that he himself had just ruined, but he also, he's tasked with killing Remy by throwing him into the Seine, and he can't do it. So, he just sits there and has this long, drawn-out conversation with himself about what he wants and what he needs, and it ultimately becomes the pairing of Remy and Linguini. But I just think that their friendship's adorable. Like, they're both using each other.
They are. For their own personal gain.
Yep. And whereas Remy can understand Linguini, Linguini cannot necessarily understand Remy, so it's just a very one-sided relationship in that aspect. But, I don't know, they're just fucking cute together. I mean, he's up there sitting on his head, pulling on his hair, making him move like a marionette. It's cute. And it's impossible, but it's so cute. And I love all of the moments of, like, awkwardness of, like, a Linguini pulling the sauce up to the hat so that Remy can smell it, but to just the other people in the kitchen, he's, like, showing it to his hat before everything else. Like, the way he's just this wet noodle dancing around this kitchen, but who's somehow producing incredible shit. Like, I want to see that in real life and not know that there's a rat up there. Like, you just kind of want to see that chaos. And it's a lot of fun. And I think that it also goes to show what it's like to work in a kitchen, because you have these nutty people doing nutty things, but you just accept it because they can turn out incredible dishes. I also appreciate the love that Pixar puts into the making of their things, because in order to accurately portray what it looks like for a person to be sopping wet in a chef's jacket, and in chef pants, they actually had somebody dress up in that outfit, dunk them into a pool, and then study where the clothing stuck to him and what parts were see-through and which parts weren't. And for a moment, like, there's twice that we see wet chefs on screen in this movie. It happens to Linguini and then it happens to Skinner. And you see their wet clothing very briefly. But the fact that some poor guy had to, like, put on the full outfit and jump into a pool and then have a bunch of animators study him.
Like using him as reference.
Yeah, for 2 seconds on screen. It just goes to show the love and the detail that Pixar puts into its films. And I thought that's, it's a really sweet gesture. I don't even know if modern Pixar would do that. Because I feel like we've gotten away a little bit. Modern Pixar has gotten away a little bit from the traditional sort of joy of old Pixar. Is that safe to say? I don't know. I feel like more modern Pixar
What was the last Pixar movie I saw? Because I don't think I saw the last one.
So, since I would say Coco. Because I feel like Coco was well, no, not necessarily, because I also didn't see The Good Dinosaur or Cars 3.
You saw The Good Dinosaur with me.
Yes, but we saw it at home. Oh.
That's true. We did.
The last Pixar movie I remember going to see in the theater was Coco. And that was in 2017. And then after that, you get The Incredibles 2, which I still haven't seen, but I heard was decent.
It's fun. Yeah.
Toy Story 4, which I haven't seen and heard was okay. Onward, which was beautiful but broke my heart, and I'll never watch it again. Soul, which was beautiful and broke my heart, and I'll never watch again. Luca, which was beautiful and broke my heart, and I'll never watch again.
Oh, come on.
Turning Red, which was beautiful and broke my heart, and I will watch again. Lightyear, which was beautiful, broke my heart, and I probably wouldn't watch again. And Elemental, which was beautiful and broke my heart, but I'll never watch again.
Wow.
It's just that these movies don't draw repeat viewing, right? Like, maybe I would watch Elemental again. It's a cute film. I think that might have been the first Pixar movie that didn't make me cry. Oh, did it make me cry? I don't remember. I don't even remember. Like, Lightyear made me cry. It was fine. Turning Red was super cute, and I would watch it again. And the music was a banger. It's a fun one. Luca was really sweet, but kind of forgettable, right? Like, Luca was so charming, and I want to eat that food. Again, going back to food and Pixar, I want to eat that, like, pesto pasta that he makes. But Soul made me cry because it was emotionally manipulating. But I'm never going to sit down and watch that film again. And then Toy Story 4, I will probably never watch. Let's be real honest with ourselves. And I'm kind of angry that the Toy Story characters that you get from Dreamlight Valley are the Toy Story 4 versions of themselves. Instead of, like, the Andy versions, which I grew up with, right? Toy Story 3 ended perfectly. They didn't have to keep going with that movie, but they did. They kept going with that story.
Yeah.
Onward was beautiful and emotionally manipulating.
Onward was so good, though.
It was good, but I haven't been able to watch Coco since, but mainly just for the fact that Coco devastated me on an emotional level that I'm still not fully recovered from. I can't hear that song without crying. And
Coco's hard to watch a lot, but I love Coco so much. I think I've seen it 3 times, and I'd watch it again, even though I know I'm going, by the time at the end, when they're singing to the old lady, "Remember Me," I'll just start falling apart again.
Yeah. So, upcoming releases too are Inside Out 2, which we're not going to watch in theater.
Probably not. Like, it's probably going to be fun, but I'm not, like, I wish they would stop it with the sequels.
Yeah, I don't think any...
They're trying to make more franchises out of Pixar.
There's not a single Pixar film outside of the first 3 Toy Stories that I feel needs a sequel.
No, that's the wonderful thing about most Pixar films is even Toy Story 1 wrapped up very well.
Yeah.
It could have just stayed at 1. I'm glad they went to 3 because 3 is amazing.
Well, Toy Story 2 is amazing.
Toy Story 2 is amazing,
but they had great stories to tell.
They had great stories.
I feel like the stories are falling apart for Pixar.
Yeah, and
I mean, we've got a Toy Story 5 coming out in a couple of years.
No! I did not know that.
For fuck's sake. There's also just an untitled film that's supposed to come out for our 20th anniversary.
Cool.
Yeah, but I know nothing about it. And then something called Elio, which I also don't know anything about. But I'm just saying that, like, there has been a certain amount of drop-off for Pixar films, right? After Toy Story 3, and after Toy Story 3, you got Cars 2, which was garbage, and I didn't see. Well, no, I did see, but I hated. Brave, which is a brilliant fucking movie. Monsters University, which I saw once and was fine. Is fine? I remember nothing about it. Inside Out, which is a brilliant movie. And then you've got The Good Dinosaur, Finding Dory, and Cars 3. Like, I'm just saying the Pixar's becoming...
And
a little bit of the magic's going away.
They're what's the word? They are... The problem, it's the same thing with Marvel Studios.
Yeah.
They're putting out way too much all at once. And
Yes.
their new plan coming up for the next few years is very little.
Yeah.
They've got like a movie and a show a year. Maybe you'll get 3 properties a year, maybe. But for now, I think it's like 2 different properties, 1 movie, 1 TV show for the entire year.
Which, on the one hand, is a bummer because I want more and all of.
And they wanted more too because they love our money. But
yes,
they were getting so
it was getting watered down.
There was this conversation about Kevin Feige when he first started. He was with every project as it went, and he was there all the time overseeing. And now there's so many projects that he can't be everywhere all at once, and he was a big part of keeping a lot of this under control.
Yeah.
Yes, he's still looking at scripts and
he's still a part of it, but he's not as big of a part of it.
Right.
And you can tell.
And there's just so much coming out all the time. And when you look at Pixar's early years, they were like, they'd have a movie, and then 2 years later they'd have another movie. And then eventually they did also start doing one movie a year.
Yeah.
And then later it became 2 movies a year.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking here, like Inside Out and The Good Dinosaur came out in the same year. Finding Dory, Finding Dory's the only one in 2016, but like Cars 3 and Coco came out in 2017. So yeah, there was a while there where they were watering down.
Yeah, Onward and Soul came out the same year.
Yeah. But those also
Turning Red
too...
and Lightyear came out the same year.
Onward and Soul were 2 of the pandemic movies, which were awkward, where they were like, well, the theaters don't really exist at the moment, so we're putting it all on Disney Plus too. And that's the other thing. Like, the only reason I sat down to watch Soul is because it was on Disney Plus.
I think if Pixar went back to just one project every other year, like if you're like, make it same thing with Star Wars. Like it needs to be an event. Make it good,
guys.
And if we go 5-10 years without anything, and then all of a sudden, here it is, the big one everyone's been waiting for, we finally get to watch it again.
Well, then we get the Phantom Menace.
Well, that's true. We did get the Phantom Menace after
20?
Almost 20 years. No. Yeah, it was almost 20 years. It was the difference between 83 and 99, so just under 20 years in between episodes 6 and 1. But yeah, we all love this stuff. We all want to gobble it up. We all want to have fun with it. We all want more. But
we have to
the quality goes down.
Yeah, the quality goes down. It gets
just
watered down.
It's just like a factory that's just pumping shit out really fast. The quality is going to get worse the faster that factory pumps stuff out. And the slower you go with time, it's the difference between, like, I know I'm making a lot of analogies, but it's fun. I'm going to go with a baking analogy. If you've got 2 people working on, or if you've got a team of people working on one wedding cake, it's going to look amazing. And once they give it to that bride and groom, it's going to be beautiful. But as soon as you get one person on doing 5 cakes like they do at Whole Foods, where one person is in charge of like a plethora of cakes, and they're all going to look nice, but the closer you look, they're going to start getting more and more.
And they're going to be simpler.
They're going to be simpler and not as complicated and cheaper looking. And that's
paying for what you get.
That's
basically
what it's coming out into with the movies, live action or animated. The quality's going down.
Yeah.
But we're getting more of it. So do you want more for lesser quality or one for the best quality?
Exactly. I mean, like, I'm glad that Marvel's only putting out Deadpool this year because we know that Deadpool's going to be fucking everything. It's nice that people are learning to take breaks. And yeah, there was a matter of oversaturating the market for a while there. And it's,
That's the word.
That's the word. But it all comes down to greed, which ultimately is kind of the lesson of this movie. I mean, the true villain of this movie is Skinner, and he's the only reason he's doing any of this is for greed, right? It's
Right.
the money he's
Wants to
making off of
launch his
Gusto's
burrito,
name.
his frozen burrito line.
Yeah, he's got his frozen foods lines, which I feel like no person should have shut down because I'm sure that was bringing in. I'd gotta imagine it was raking in the money, but maybe it wasn't. I
Have a
don't know.
side. Who cares if you have a side project? I mean,
Yeah.
it could like lessen the name of Gusto.
Well, again, we're talking about oversaturation. We're literally talking about oversaturation. But so the villain is Skinner and his greed, and the hero of this movie ultimately is the feeling of love that you get when somebody makes you a meal, and how food can be a love language, right? And how it can be something that is an art. It's an art. It is a talent. It is a proof that a great food artist can come from anywhere, but in the end, Anton's whole life has changed because he tastes something that reminds him of his childhood and his mother. So it also goes to show
Gives
how
him
food,
perspective.
Yeah, it gives him perspective, and it goes to show how food can be, a memory maker, something that draws you into your past. I mean, like my dad's barbecue, my mom's baked chicken,
Sometimes the
smell
simpler
of,
foods
Yeah.
are the better. Sometimes like you said, like bring this whole thing around with our conversation about oversaturation. They in the Gusto restaurant, they just have, this is our menu.
Yeah.
We're just this is what we're making. Choose from the menu.
and it's good, but it's boring.
It's good, but it's getting boring because
Yeah.
it's the same thing over and over and over.
Whereas Linguini comes in.
Linguini
and Remy comes in.
and he
changes things up.
he's like, change things up, different meals,
Sauces,
things that
different
have
spices, different.
brings people back
Yeah.
to their childhood memories. Better soups, a ratatouille dish that is very peasant and ordinary, and he's able to
Make it high end.
make it
and
high end, but also still have those
Keep the
roots,
soul, yeah.
keep the soul of it, to give him perspective.
When I've got a lot of memories around food because my dad is a great cook and he loved cooking growing up. We always barbecued on Sundays. It was always cornbread for breakfast on Sunday mornings. I've got memories when I went to Switzerland with my best friend Jessie. We had this like chicken that was roasted in it was roasted and then dunked into a milk sauce, like a buttermilk sauce, and it was the best thing I've ever eaten, and I still daydream about that chicken. Or the Nudelkuchen, which was a cream-based cake that I had in Switzerland, in the French part of Switzerland, no less, that tastes like the perfect glazed donut, but in cake form. I mean, it's been 20 years, and I still think about those foods daily. But more than anything, sometimes I smell toast, and I'm taken back to my grandpa's kitchen, because I was fortunate to grow up next door to my grandpa, so we spent a ton of time with him. And so, sometimes the smell of whole wheat toast takes me back to being in his kitchen when he was alive, coming back from one of his desert runs out with all the neighborhood dogs, and I can smell toast and butter, and I'm just there in Grandpa's kitchen, and everything's okay again, because he's there. So food can be such a beautiful trigger for memory, and that's something that this movie portrays just beautifully.
I have a handful of dishes that I make my family on almost a weekly basis that come from my childhood.
They were your mom's dishes.
They were my mom's dishes, and so the reason why I keep making them is because they are comfort food for me. I have great memories of her making those dishes for me. I love putting my own spin on a lot of them.
You have
to make them
improved upon them.
I have just to make them more me as well, because I like to cook so much and I like to cook from scratch. So I use less spices and powders and stuff, and use like actual the herb itself.
Yeah, you
actual onion and garlic instead of the powders. But or making my own mayonnaise, or making my own barbecue
you make the
sauce,
best
or
mayonnaise,
gravies, or soup, all that kind of stuff.
And one day our kids are gonna.
Our son's getting really into making his own scrambled eggs
and sausage right now, which is super cute. But one day our kids are going to be like, this is the Thanksgiving dinner that Mom always made. This is the recipe for the turkey. This is how she made the gravy. This was the stuffing recipe that she made every year, although they don't eat stuffing, so I can't imagine that they would actually use that recipe, but maybe one day. I don't know.
Maybe one. We all grow up to eventually like food.
Yeah. But, you know, they too are. Our son's going to grow up one day and be like, well, Dad, I want to make spaghetti like you make it. Show me how you make your spaghetti. And so the recipe that your mom taught you and that you've taken and kind of skewed and improved upon is now going to be the recipe that our son's going to take and skew and improve upon. But it's still going to be, this is how Dad made it. And this is how his mom made it. You know, like, food can be such a beautiful thing when it comes to, like, families. I love cooking for people. I love it. I love cooking for people and seeing the reaction to eating my food and just being so happy. And, you know, it's a great feeling. It's a great feeling when Caveman, you know, makes a pie and takes it into his job and everybody's so excited. Or, you know, I had a coworker that loved tres leches cake, so I made it for him for his birthday and took it in and fed the entire crew at my job with it. And everybody was so excited for tres leches cake. And so it's just... making food for people is a wonderful form of a love language, and I'm really glad that that's something that Caveman and I share, because it means that our lives are better that way. So one thing that I love about this movie, and again, going back to Pixar and its incredible use of details, is how all of the chefs have cuts and burns on their hands and their forearms.
I noticed that.
I too have a little chef's burn from the oven, from reaching into the oven and the top of my wrist accidentally hitting one of the oven grates and getting a burn. I actually currently have a burn on my arm from some soup. But like all the little cuts and scrapes that professional cooks get, that was something too that Anthony Bourdain, may he rest in peace.
No reservations.
The long beloved celebrity chef and
Our Lord and Savior.
Our beloved Anthony Bourdain. This was one of his favorite films because it showed what life was really like in a kitchen, and he too brought up like the little cuts and scrapes and burns that, you know, chefs tend to accumulate over the years because you're working with fire and you're working with hot pans, and you not only do you not always have time to grab like a hot pad, you know, or a trivet or something, but also sometimes they fail and, you know, there's a hole in them and you still get burned even when using them. I can't tell you, after all my time working in professional kitchens, how many cuts and scrapes and burns I have. But just that little extra detail is beautiful. They utilize Thomas Keller, the renowned chef from the French Laundry.
From the French Laundry in California.
As their like main resource for the kitchen and the food side of things. He was the one that developed the Ratatouille recipe that we see at the end of the movie, which is not a traditional Ratatouille, but, you know, is close enough to it, or a new
it's
perspective.
It's
a new perspective on Ratatouille.
It's got to fancy it up.
Yeah, and Thomas Keller is, I don't know if any of you folks have ever seen him interviewed or, you know, any of his cooking techniques or something, but he is such a genuine human being. I've heard very little bad things about him, if nothing, if at all. I would die to eat at the French Laundry.
Oh,
I would
man.
Die. It is so outside of our own.
What was the name of the pastry chef that used to work there that opened his own cake place in Cleveland?
Duff Goodman?
Duff.
The Ace of Cakes dude?
Ace of Cakes, Duff
Yeah, that was
Cakes.
Duff Goodman. Goodman. Duff Goodman.
Anyway.
Yeah.
I remember he worked at the French Laundry and always had good things to say about his
A lot of people have. And in fact, eventually we're going to have to watch The Menu, which is another great movie about life in a kitchen and life as a server.
I was going to bring up The Menu earlier, and I didn't because, we know we're going to be doing it down the line anyway, but there is that moment where he makes the cheeseburger, and I feel like that was like Remy making the Ratatouille.
Exactly.
It was the same point. They made the same point with that.
It's bringing, it's all of this high-end food and this, like, fucking lamb sweetbreads. Your average, human being is not out there craving lamb sweetbreads, right? But that's a high-end cut of protein for a high-end dish. And in The Menu, they make all these incredibly fantastic, different, culinary meals, right? These insane bits of technology and the way they use stuff and blah, blah, blah. But ultimately, the meal that Ray Fiennes loved making the most was a basic cheeseburger. So it does kind of go to show that there is a beauty in the simplicity of food and in what food can, what a simple food can accomplish. A good cheeseburger can beat a fucking dry-aged Wagyu, steak any day. Although I've never had a dry-aged Wagyu, and I would love to. But still, sometimes you just want a cheeseburger.
Sometimes
And
you just want a basic cheeseburger.
yeah, like, fuck, I'd eat a cheeseburger right now.
You still want it to taste good, but sometimes that's what you crave.
I mean, I can, in my head, remember what the taste of an In-N-Out cheeseburger tastes like. Right? An In-N-Out cheeseburger, no onions, not animal style, just a basic In-N-Out cheeseburger, no onions. And in my head, I can taste it, and then I can taste the animal style fries next to it and the root beer that you have on the side, because the root beer is perfect with most fast food, but especially In-N-Out. Like, I know what that tastes like, but it doesn't mean I wouldn't punch your grandma in order for that meal to appear in front of me right now so that I could eat it. Not your grandma, Caveman, but the listeners. 'Cause I like
each one of the listeners.
every
Grandmother is
single.
gonna get
Look,
punched for.
I will punch a grandma if it means I got some fucking In-N-Out in front of me right now. That's how much I love it.
Just as long as you scrape your onions onto mine.
Okay, you can have them. Yeah, this movie and the detail, the love they put into the food and into the environment is really beautiful. But going back to it, we've talked so much about the culinary side of things, but we've kind of failed to mention the familiar side of things, which is Remy is kind of beholden to his family. First of all, he loses his colony, his family, when they escape from the crazy old woman's house. And, Remy goes off to Paris, and he has no idea where his family is. Ultimately, he finds his brother Emile in the dumpster out back, and then Emile takes him back to the colony where he reconnects with his father and his former colony. And it definitely causes some problems for poor Remy, because a rat's main function is to survive and thus find food and scavenge. And here Remy is working in the mecca of food, but
he wants to live, not just survive.
Yeah, he wants to live, not just survive. Excellent use of the movie there. So we get back to kind of the heart of this film, which is, Remy's heart, which is his family, and trying to justify the two sides of him, the foodie side and the family side. But yeah, I love Emile. I think that he's just such a sweet loaf of a rat. He's got a smooth brain. He just wants to eat garbage, but he's so... Emile is the one non-asshole of this movie. Like, yes, he tells all of his, he allows all of his bro friends, take advantage of the food that Remy's giving them.
I didn't think you meant them.
Yeah, but... nothing that he does is malicious. He is just sweet, soft boy with a smooth brain, much like producer Robin.
Who thankfully is asleep this time instead of playing with toys.
Yeah.
For now.
Emile was played by, again, Peter Schoen. He was an animator. He is still an animator. But it was one of those things where, he just kind of had the perfect voice and perfect, body language for Emile, which is why Brad Bird tapped him to be that character. And then Brian Dennehy, who's, a beloved and lost character actor. I believe he's gone, right?
Yeah, he died in 2020.
Yeah, so, Brian Dennehy is gone now, but he's such a delight as Django, Remy's dad, who is, of course, the gruff leader of the colony, because it always has to be... It's always the child of the leader going off having big adventures. It's always... the princess, the daughter of the chief, the son of the leader of the town.
Well, it's always got to be a young coming-of-age kind of story.
Yeah, but it has to be somebody that's high up. Yeah.
And a boy. A rat and a boy meet, and they're going to take the culinary world by storm.
Even though it's still kind of a Nepo problem, because the rat is the son of the chief of the colony, and the boy is the son
of a famous chef.
So
it's the Nepo baby restaurant.
Oh my God, maybe that's why I'm never concerned about Hollywood's, constant... there's such a discourse in Hollywood and in social media and in fandom about Nepo babies and whether or not they deserve it. And I've always just been like, who the fuck cares?
We're about to have Simba's daughter is going to be played by Beyonce's daughter.
Yeah, no, I don't care about that. I don't care that Jack Quaid is Dennis Quaid's and Meg Ryan's son. He's delightful as Boimler, and I love him.
I think Jack Quaid has earned a lot of the roles that he's been getting, whereas they're just kind of throwing...
Alice Williams is
Simba role.
Brian Williams' daughter from NBC News. Does she deserve her role in Get Out because she's Brian Williams' daughter, or did she deserve her role in Get Out because she was the best person?
I bet a lot of these people have auditioned just like a lot.
Yeah.
Jack Quaid auditions.
Yeah. He's out there.
He doesn't get like all. It's not like he's got.
He
all
doesn't
the
get
big
handed
roles.
stuff just because he's Jack Quaid's
Right.
son, or he's Dennis Quaid's son. And he also has his own comedy troupe. He also has his own he does music and stuff. He's a very prolific guy out there doing his own thing, and he's delightful and charming and hella cute. But I'm just saying, I don't mind the Nepo babies. I don't like the Kardashians, but that's just because I don't like the Kardashians.
It comes down to when the performance comes to us and we're able to watch it. Is it going to suck, or is it really good? If it's really good, they probably earn that spot.
Yeah.
If it sucks, if they're just the worst, then watch After Earth with Will Smith and his son.
Thank you.
That's
a Nepo baby problem.
Baby,
but
that was bad.
I guess I just don't care to force people to acknowledge their parentage in order to be an actor, because there's some guy out there who's getting handed his fourth generation family's restaurant because he's the oldest son, and now he's, Giuseppe of Giuseppe's Restaurant, right? Because he's the next in line, and he was raised doing that stuff, and it's what he's always done and what he's born to be. I don't consider that a Nepo baby. I'm just saying that, I don't think that we need to force these people to acknowledge their parental privilege.
I think
in order to just appreciate who they are and yes, if they're talented, it changes everything. If they're shit, then you're just there's Kylie Jenner doing something just because she's a fucking Jenner. But
I think a lot of it just comes down to you can't put everybody under the same umbrella, but it's definitely you can tell when it is and when it's not.
I'm just saying that maybe I don't care so much about it because I was raised on Disney films where every single
the actors are bad?
No, every single hero of the movie is a Nepo baby.
Gotcha.
They're always the princess. They're always the prince. They're always the
we have raised Nepo
daughter
babies
of the chieftain.
Into the pop culture.
I mean, for fuck's sake, Luke Skywalker is the Nepo baby of Star Wars.
Yeah, he is.
Fucking Indiana Jones, to extent, is a Nepo baby, too. They're all, because his father was a famed historian.
Yeah, but Dr. Jones put himself through school. It's not like he's living
chasing after his father, Dr. Jones is.
Not all the time.
You think that if Indiana Jones had been I want to make pizza instead, that Henry Jones would have been okay with it?
I think the first two Indiana Jones movies were definitely him on his own merit.
Before we found out that he's history's Nepo baby.
Yeah. So
I'm just saying, it doesn't bother me because these are
his dad handed him a doctorate.
These are who stories are about, right? They're always the child of a leader in some capacity. And so I guess that's why I'm not bothered by it, because even fucking Ratatouille, now that we've broken it down, I didn't go into this conversation thinking that Remy is a Nepo baby, but now I'm holy shit, maybe he is. Linguini definitely is.
Linguini definitely is.
Because
he doesn't belong there.
No, he doesn't belong there. And
that's exactly what a Nepo baby. He doesn't have any reason to be in that kitchen.
But Remy does. Can we talk about Ego for a minute?
The Planet Eater?
No.
Ego the Living Planet. Sorry,
no,
that one.
Anton.
Oh, the
yeah, Anton Ego. Where did you go?
I know what you meant. I was just playing Ego the Living Planet, as played by Kurt Russell, who has his own Nepo baby.
Whose son, Wyatt Russell, was also in a Marvel film, and that's only because he's a Nepo baby.
You think so?
No, I think it's because he was the best, shittiest Captain America they could find.
I love Wyatt Russell.
I loved Wyatt Russell in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. He was fantastic. I love him in everything I've seen him in. But anyways, fuck, what was my thought? Where did I go? Ego the Living Planet.
I mean, Ego the food critic.
You fucker. I love you so much.
Love you too.
Ego is such a drama queen.
Yes.
That bitch, to have your office shaped like a coffin and your typewriter to be shaped like a skull, that bitch did not do that unknowingly. It is not like he just happened to find a really good typewriter that's looked like a skull. That motherfucker, that overdramatic little bitch, was just living for the drama, and I was here for it.
Ego is the Damien Chazelle of the food world.
Damien... And what would did Damien Chazelle think of the rat jazz that was
rat
playing
jazz.
in the Rat Jazz Club?
I was really enjoying that
It
rat
was
jazz.
really good rat jazz. Damien Chazelle has ruined jazz for me. I can't believe that. Like, I was telling Caveman yesterday that I wish I had known what Whiplash was like before seeing La La Land, because it would have probably skewed how I viewed La La Land, because I hated Whiplash so goddamn much. But I'm also glad that I didn't see it first, because it didn't ruin that movie for me. But now jazz, every time I see jazz in anything, I'm just going to be like, what does Damien Chazelle think of this? What does J.K. Simmons think of this right now? Would Ryan Gosling lecture me on rat jazz?
Would J.K. Simmons throw a chair at Remy's cousin who's playing in the rat jazz band?
Who's playing the fucking paperclip in the rat jazz band? Better!
That's not my tempo!
His little, like, banana... His little fucking... What is it? His little rubber band bass... The little rubber band bass in the corner is fucking J.K. Simmons gonna throw a chair at him because he's not on tempo. God damn you, Damien Chazelle. God damn you for ruining jazz for me. Oh, this is gonna be a forever thing. That bastard. But going back to Remy's family is great.
Remy's family is great.
That's where that rant started. I'm Brandon.
This kind of a little bit later, this takes us to
We didn't even finish talking about Ego.
Oh. All right, so back to Ego. Not the living planet.
God, this would be a perfect episode for people to, like, watch us record. People are always like, oh, can we watch you record it on YouTube? And we're like,
$10 a month on Patreon.
No. Yeah, that'll have to be a Patreon thing if we ever get there. But, this fucking is delightfully off the rails. Ego is a delightful villain in that he comes across as such a psycho, but ultimately he's just a wounded little boy looking for comfort. You know, I feel like maybe Ego's entire career is just that little boy trying to seek the same comfort that his mother's, you know, homey peasant dish of ratatouille gave him.
So earlier you mentioned that there were 2 times that a character is wet, and one of those times was Skinner.
Yeah.
One of the funniest parts is that he jumps trying to reach Remy, who's on the boat.
Yeah.
And he jumps, but he just misses it. But he grabs the tablecloth from the table next to him, and he pulls it without any of the dishes moving on the table. I thought that was so fast, clever, like just one of those great
and will always and
animated
forever
sight gags.
Make me think of Peter Venkman in Ghostbusters, when he rips the tablecloth off of the table and goes, and the flowers are still standing.
Wait. I've always wanted to do this. And?
The flowers are still standing.
Classic.
Oh, fucking so good.
So good.
That I also really love in that scene where the edges of the paper kind of like lift up like Dumbo's ears. And that's what Remy kind of glides off of, is the wind under the piece of papers in his mouth, but they resemble Dumbo's ears, and I thought that was really cute, especially as a lifelong Dumbo hater. Because I fucking hate Dumbo. Man. It's the elephants on parade. Ruined that movie for me. I can never watch it again. It's fucking nightmare zone right there for me. So the movie ends with... you know, the climax of the movie centers around Linguini admitting why he is such a good chef, which is because Remy has been helping him, to the entire staff of Gustos, and all of the staff are just like, fuck it, I'm out. I can't deal with this. And Anton Ego's sitting in the kitchen, or sitting in the dining room waiting to be fed, and the kitchen is empty, and who comes to the rescue but the colony of rats? And, well, on one hand, I know rats to be very clean creatures because I had pet rats growing up. I still couldn't imagine them making my food because, ew.
Well, these are, like, sewer rats.
These are sewer rats.
Living in France.
Yeah.
And
they cannot be clean.
They cannot be clean at all.
Except, apparently, if they go through the sanitation dishwasher cycle.
The big industrial dishwasher.
That makes me laugh every time I see it, because I've worked in kitchens with that pull down.
I worked at a camp for 2 weeks, and I was the dishwasher for one of those weeks. And
fucking pull down dishwasher.
They're a lot of fun because it's so fast and it gets everything so hot and steamy and clean.
But when the rats go through it and they all come out just puffy. Like puffy
yeah.
and like sizzling slightly, that shit makes me laugh so hard. And Remy is a great sous chef, or a great chef in general. The way he like commanded that kitchen, he tasted everything, he was aware of everything going on. Like, the guy definitely has chef talents, and it was wonderful to see. But I think that scene's so funny. And then when the food inspector walks in, the health inspector, and the rats fucking hog-tie him and throw him in the walk-in, and then eventually Skinner goes into the walk-in too, that shit's hysterical. Because imagine you're just a fucking health inspector and you walk into a restaurant and the next thing you know you're hog-tied and gagged because a bunch of rats threw you in the walk-in. This movie, speaking of the walk-in, this movie also shows the time-tested and time-honored tradition of, if you need somewhere to have an absolute panic attack or freak out, that's the walk-in.
Go to the walk-in.
You go to the walk-in. And the rules is if you walk into your walk-in and somebody is in there having a moment, you just leave them be. I have had chefs open up the freezer, see me sobbing by the ice cream, and be like, "You good? Okay," get what they need and leave me there. Like, it is the time-honored truth that the walk-in is where you cry. I've cried in every walk-in I've ever worked at. Every single one. Even Baskin Robbins, and that thing was fucking -3 degrees. But I still cried in there once.
This movie, generally, throughout it, doesn't really draw out any, like, emotional moments.
No, there's no moments that make me cry.
However, the moment that Ego takes that bite and he's flashed back into the kitchen with his mom, and he just crashed his bike. Obviously, he's having a terrible day. The mom, of course, is already like
there
cooking him something. Yeah, it's like we said, comfort food with your mom. Great memories. So of course, I'm just like, I'm not crying. You're crying. Beautiful moment. I love it.
It's such a sweet scene.
It's
been parodied, but it's so pure. And it just goes back to what I was saying about how food can be a wonderful memory. I mean, the smell of toast has made me cry before. It always will, I think, because fuck do I miss my grandpa. It's such a great little film. And of course, it ends by Gousseau's being shut down because of severe health violations, because their kitchen is infested with rat chefs. But it's okay, because then they open up a little restaurant called Le Ratatouille. Which is doing well, and I don't know if people know that a rat is making their food, but I don't know if they seem to care, or maybe that is something they hide from the health inspector.
Tried to remember if there was anything in the newspapers talking about rats.
I don't think so, no, because Anton's review himself is he doesn't describe who the chef is.
That's true.
Just that it's something spectacular. But the movie ends in such a pure and heartfelt way, which is just, here are these people who love what they're doing, and they get to do it forever. And it's really sweet, and it's really beautiful. I adore this film. I was so glad to rewatch it. I will be singing the themes. I'll be walking around, like, humming the themes to myself for the next couple of days. Like, if it's been a while since you've seen Ratatouille, and we didn't go beat for beat on this one because we went off on every tangent imaginable.
Well, we've seen it because of our kid. We've seen it a thousand times.
We've seen it a thousand
kind of
times.
already know it, so there's nothing new for us to talk about. I'm sure people who are listening, this movie's been out since 2007.
But my point is,
hugely popular.
If it's been a minute, go back and rewatch Ratatouille.
Yeah. Give it another watch.
I do know that some of our listeners will, like, watch the movie before they listen to our show so that they can kind of remember it. It's like, we all know the beats of Ratatouille. We all know what it is. But it is still perfect. And so that's going to bring me to our ratings. Caveman, what do you rate Ratatouille?
I would give Ratatouille a 4.
Really?
Yeah. It's not my favorite Pixar film, because of course I'm going to compare this to other Pixar films. It's not my favorite Pixar film, and the main reason is I feel like as much as the story is fun, funny, heartwarming, it's also very simple. It's just a rat and a guy who want to lift each other up into this business.
Which has been done so many times before.
And then it just kind of, that's it. That's the end of the movie. And it's, like I said, it's very touching. Peter O'Toole's dialogue at the end of the movie is so
Superb.
touching and
Yeah.
superb. I'm leaving the higher rankings for some other Pixar movies coming up.
Okay, that's fair.
Not that they can't be equal. I'm choosing 4. God damn it.
Okay, no, that's fine. Because I was honestly struggling between a 4.5 and a 5.
Wow.
Because this movie really, truly is perfect. I can't see any fault. The way that you couldn't find any fault in Get Out, I can't find any fault in Ratatouille. It is not my favorite Pixar movie at all, which is WALL-E, and when we get to WALL-E, I will talk at length about why I love it so much. But that's fine. And like, yeah, so our kid watched it way too much growing up, and so now all I can kind of associate it is with that. But having rewatched it again today, I was just reminded of how charming it is, how funny, how beautiful, how incredibly well done, everything, the acting, the design, the love, the music, all of it is perfect. I gotta give it 5 for that, because while, yes, it may not be my top Pixar movie, it's still in the top 3, and it's still just fucking perfect, man. This movie is so incredibly charming, and I feel like it deserves a 5. You know, obviously I rated Get Out pretty low because of my own personal feelings for it, and I'm okay if you want to rate Ratatouille for the same reasons, like your own personal reasons, because I can't fight you on that because I've done it too. Yeah. But looking at this film after we watched it today, I just can't think of it needing to be docked for any reason. It's a perfect fucking film, and I love it.
So Maggie.
Yes, Caveman?
I have 2 questions for you.
Hit me.
Would the voice of Oscar Isaac have made Ratatouille better?
I don't think it would have necessarily... Yes, it would have. It wouldn't have made it worse. I don't think it could have improved upon it. It just would have been nice to hear. So I'm still going to give that a yes.
I mean,
yes,
you already gave it 5 stars.
I did. So why not also put Oscar Isaac into it in his perfect, beautiful lilting voice?
Well, so then, second question, what character would that voice have played?
I think that he would have been a lot of fun as one of the other chefs. Again, we're going for a small part. I couldn't imagine putting Oscar Isaac in for any of the main characters because they're all so perfectly done.
I was going to say I could see him as the sous chef.
Yeah, the sous chef maybe, although Will Arnett does a great job.
He does, but if we're talking Oscar Isaac.
Yeah, if we're talking Oscar Isaac. So yeah, you could do the sous chef or one of the other chefs, maybe not the waiter because that's John Ratzenberger's. Maybe if he's just one of the patrons at the restaurant. That would have been a delightful little Easter egg for my ears and my soul. But yeah, throw him in or not, it's still a great film. But I could see him as just doing a little voice cameo with his perfect voice. I love him so much. And that is this week's episode of Movie Mingle, where we took on Ratatouille. Personally, I'm going to go out and have a very nice lunch with a good friend, which is probably the best way you can, or the best thing you can do after watching Ratatouille is go out and eat some good food with good company. Please join us next week where our movie is Oppenheimer, the other half of the giant summer juggernaut from 2023. It will be our second time seeing the film, and we're both pretty excited to revisit it. And that also begins Nolan Fest, where every other film coming up in the next 6 episodes is a Christopher Nolan movie, which will be a lot of fun. We also have our Tron Legacy bonus episode dropping very soon, and we're extremely excited for you guys to hear that. But until then, you can reach us on Instagram and Letterboxd at movieminglepod, and email us at movieminglepod@gmail.com for all your thoughts and comments. Feel free to leave us whatever star review you would like, but definitely a 5-star. Leave us a 5-star review on Spotify and Apple. And yeah, we're just so grateful for all of you folks listening this long. We love each and every one of you so much. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Now go mingle. Bye.
Are you an effective team?
We are an effective team.
Let them fight.
How did you just do that?
I'm a really good lawyer.
Here on Caladan, we've ruled by air power and sea power. On Arrakis, we need to cultivate desert power.
Welcome, Mr. Beach. What's that bar? I'm a little confused.
Well, we wouldn't want that, would we?
I don't want to brag, but I will. I was in the Avengers. The Avengers?
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you. What is that?
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
Toga, toga, toga.